Welcome back to our tutorials. Today we're going to be teaching you how to make the icing and how to ice the cake. So we're going to teach 3 types of icing: buttercream icing, fresh cream icing, and Fino Whip, which is also a fresh cream icing but made from a powdered icing. So join me as I take you through a step-by-step process of how to ice our delicious and yummy chocolate cake. We're going to be starting with making buttercream icing. So in this bowl, I've already got my butter, which is the Moy River salted butter. You can use unsalted butter. It's really up to you. Or you can also use stock to bake, which is a baking margarine. So that's what we're going to be using. We're going to post the PDF of the recipe, but you can just follow along. So what we're going to need is, we're going to need our butter, and we're going to need our icing sugar. Any icing sugar, any brand. I'm currently going to be using the Country Choice icing sugar, which is very white and very light and rarely has got lumps. Okay, so also going to need our scale, our spoons, and our measuring cups. So the ratio of making your butter to your icing sugar usually is 1:2, meaning that if we've got 250 grams of butter, we're going to have 500 grams of the icing sugar. Then you can use as well a flavoring of your choice. So right here, I've got the Baco Tutti Frutti, or you can use Baco Marshmallow, you can use Flavor Nation. There are different flavors. You can even use vanilla essence, depending on the cake that you're making. Lemon essence, strawberry essence, to complement the flavor of your cake. So for this particular one, I'm going to use the marshmallow flavor, so that our icing is nice and marshmallowy. Okay, so the first stage is to just sift your icing sugar. Okay, so we're just going to, let's start by measuring our butter. So we need 250 grams of butter. So we are going to start by measuring our ingredients. Remember, this is a digital scale. How to use a digital scale is you switch it on, you place the bowl that you want to use. It already gives you the weight of the bowl. Then you press tar and you've got your 0. So this is on 0 at the moment. Make sure that your butter is nice and soft. So, or make it sure that it's at room temperature, so you can actually take it out the night before. So this is straight from the packet, a 500 gram packet. So we're hoping it's 500 grams. It can be slightly short, but it's not a train smash. Okay, we are on 486. So we can work with that and just double. Remember, we said the ratio is 1:2. So we are on 488. So which means we are going to need 966. Then we can now start measuring our icing sugar. You can sift it directly in there, or you can measure first and then sift. I always just like to sift it directly. How many are we on? So icing sugar is quite light. Okay, we are now on 300. We need to get to 968. No, 968. It's double.
Oh, double.
Mm-hmm. So can you see how sometimes it's so lumpy? Okay, so now that we've got our butter and our icing sugar all sifted, we're going to start mixing these two. So all we have to do is to put the butter, and probably we're going to just make it into smaller pieces and put it on into our mixer to beat. So we're going to beat the butter until soft, and then we're going to add the icing sugar a little at a time, probably also add our flavoring, and then we're going to leave it to beat for 10 minutes. So the trick for a nice buttercream is to beat for 10 minutes, but at a medium speed, not high speed. And I've seen that beating it more allows for the sugar to dissolve and for the butter and sugar to be properly incorporated. I know some people just say beat until it is mixed, but for me, what has worked for me is to beat for 10 minutes. You won't even taste the butter. You won't even know that it's buttercream. We had so many people just asking for this recipe. So that's the trick, and I'm just going to show you how it's done. So we're going to put our butter into our stand mixer. So this is a stand mixer. You can use any stand mixer as long as it's got 300 or more volts, and it's actually easier to use than a hand mixer. But if you don't have, you can just use a hand mixer. So we're using the beater, as you can see. If it's a hand mixer, you'll still be using the beater, the beaters to beat this, not the whisk. We're going to mix our buttercream. We're going to start by mixing the butter, and just for a few minutes until it's blended in on medium. So you see, you notice that I've got this non-slip mat on my mixers. This helps your machine to be steady and not to move around. So it's just advisable to have it underneath your mixer. Our butter is already melted, and at this stage we can start adding our custard sugar, our icing sugar, sorry. So when you add your icing sugar, make sure that your machine is as slow as possible, because if it's going too fast, then your icing sugar will be all over your pretty face. So there is our icing sugar. So as you can see, the machine will start filling it because it begins to get heavier. So baking is messy, eh? Naturally. Can you see your icing is already starting to come together? Okay, so once that is done, we're going to turn off the mixer and we're going to scrape down. So that you prepare it now for mixing for 10 minutes. But still, in those 10 minutes, you can stop the mixer and scrape down. So at this stage, we're also going to add our flavor. So for this one, I'm adding marshmallow flavor from Baco. So I'm just going to drop maybe about 3 drops. If you're using vanilla essence, you can add 2 teaspoons or up to your desired taste. And we're going to leave this to mix for 10 minutes. So now we are going to be demonstrating how to make fino whip icing. It's one of the most popular icings here in Zim. Also made from Bakers, a baker's product, which is a powdered icing. It's so nice and easy to use, no chances of over whipping, and it really whips up to be smooth. So what we're going to need for that is our fresh milk and our powdered icing, some instant pudding to stabilize, and some flavor. I'm going to use butter vanilla paste available also at Cake Fairy. It's a very good flavor. It's nice and strong and rich. So what the ratio for this is just 1:2 again. 1 cup of our milk and 1 cup of the powdered icing. So you can even make it slightly heaped because the ratio is 1:2. You can also use water with this, but if you want it to be creamy, you rather just use milk. Then we're going to use our flavor, and I'm just going to put half a teaspoon of flavor and a teaspoon of instant pudding. This works wonders for me than an ordinary stabilizer. It also comes with flavor. You can put more depending on how stable you want your mixture to be. So from there, we're just going to put this in the mixer and whip until it's nice and creamy. So we're going to start mixing slowly so that the ingredients are incorporated. And it's ready, just in those easy steps. So this is now ready for us to start icing our cake. So we've come to the exciting part, which is to ice our cake. So as we did in the previous tutorial, we baked a chocolate cake. And now it's cool and ready. It's advisable to allow your cake to set overnight and allow the structure of the cake to build. It's no longer as soft and it's now easier to handle. So we are just going to trim off just a little bit, just to make sure that our cake has got a nice straight edge. Okay? So we're just going to trim off some. We're going to trim off some cake. So if you notice, because we measured, these cakes are the same height, right? Because we measured the mixture. So there is not much trimming, and it's nice and flat because we didn't grease. So sometimes you must know that greasing causes your cake to dome. So now that I've trimmed, we're going to now take our cake. Please don't cut, trim. we're going to take our cake now and we're going to turn it upside down and put it on a cake board. So always make sure that your cake board is 3 inches or 5 centimeters bigger than your actual cake. So this is a 7-inch and we're putting it on a 10-inch cake board. Okay, so what you need to ice is a spatula, offset or just an ordinary straight one, depends on your preference. I prefer this straight one. And don't use a big one, because when you use a very big one, you struggle to actually ice. We're also going to need a scraper and a nice embosser. So make sure you are using a turntable because it makes it very easy for you to ice. So the trick is when you're icing, one hand is working whilst the other one is turning the table. You're going to see as I demonstrate. So once we've turned our cake upside down, we're now going to take some of our icing and we want to sandwich these cakes together. So we're going to put some icing. So sometimes if you want, you can add some jam or whatever else you want to add to your cake. So here we're doing basic icing. So as you can see how I'm just spreading this and turning my table. Just simple like that. That's the first stage. You then take your next cake, right? And turn it upside down as well. And remove your greaseproof paper. Make sure that your cake is in the center of the board. And as you work, just try and get rid of the crumbs. Okay, so there we are. That's the next stage. Once you've done that, you're going to take a little bit of icing, put it on top. So when you ice a cake, you always start from the top, going to the sides. So we're just going to put, this is our first layer, which we can call a crumb coat. So you are just going to be spreading. Simple, nothing fancy, just spreading, trying to make sure that you cover the cake with cream and you manage the crumbs. Don't worry if there are still crumbs, just ice your cake and cover all of it. So as you can see how I'm holding my spatula and how I'm spreading. It's at a 90-degree angle and I keep working section by section and whilst I turn my turntable, as you can see. If your icing is too thick, you can add a little bit of water and mix it and thin it out so that it's easy to spread. Okay? So now we're going to start icing our cake. So like I said, when you're icing your cake, you always start from the top. So now that we've managed our crumbs, right, we are now going to start spreading. As you can see, follow me stage by stage. I'm just spreading the icing. Okay? So what is turning is the table. This hand is steady. So please watch what I'm doing. I'm just applying a small section and spread. I turn, I come back, I apply a small section, I turn, another small section, I turn, section by section. Don't try and cover the whole cake. Just work section by section until the whole cake has been covered in cream. You can go around and check if there are any areas that don't have icing. Okay. Once that is done, you don't scrape or anything, just apply. So the cake is now fully covered in icing. This is when now we take our scraper. Holding at a 90-degree angle, 45-degree to you, you now start scraping. So here we are. What is moving is the turntable. My hand is not moving. What is moving is the turntable. The hand with the scraper is not moving. And as you can see, as you scrape, your cake begins to have shape. Right? So there we go. Now our cake is nicely scraped. So we're using the embosser and we're going to be scraping again the same way. But it's nice because it gives your cake a nice and beautiful design. So for beginners, I would advise you, if you can't get the cake completely smooth, then the embosser will come to your rescue. So look at that. So from there, once that is done, you come back again. Make sure you wipe your spatula clean. Always work with the work cloth. And now we are just going to neaten the top by just scrape, come back, scrape, section by section. So notice that I'm not starting from there, coming there. I'm just on top slightly and I'm in and I'm out. On top slightly there, so that you can have a nice sharp edge. Don't try and go over the cake. Just be on top as much as possible and work section by section. Don't come all the way in, okay? And there you have your iced cake. Once that is done, you clean your cake board and then we start piping. Start wiping. Hey, the noise. It's not perfect. It's fine. All right. So to clean the board, you take the corner of your swab and you start wiping. Your presentation is very, very important. So make sure that you clean any excess icing on the board. So this corner is very, very ideal to, the corner of your swab is very, very ideal to just wipe off any excess. Okay. So there we go. So where you ended when you were scraping becomes the back of your cake, and the front becomes the nice and smooth side. Okay. So now I'm just going to show you how to pipe the cake so that we can ice it to completion. So here I'm using a disposable piping bag and I'm using a 1M nozzle. This is the most popular nozzle. Others call it 2D, the most popular nozzle in the world. It's very good for your rosettes and it's the most important nozzle that you should own. Okay, so piping bag, and I'm going to pop in my nozzle. Once my nozzle is in, I'm going to just measure where I should cut, push it down, and then I just cut off my measurement. And there I have my nozzle popping out like that. Okay. Then we're going to feed in our icing into the bag. Don't overfill it. Just put in a little bit. So that you are able to still at the same time angle the piping bag. So depending on the design of the cake. Okay. So when you are piping, know that there's an angle in which you should hold your piping bag. If you want to do stars, you're holding it at 90 degrees. If you are doing rosettes, you're also holding it at 90 degrees. So you should know how, at what angle you are supposed to hold your piping bag for the effect that you want. So for this one, we are going to just do some nice rosettes, some swells. So you start there, and there you go up, 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 squeeze, 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 stop, and release. Okay, then if you want, you can put a border around your cake where you can put stars, where you are just squeezing, stop, release, squeeze, stop, release, squeeze, stop, release, squeeze, stop, release. And we are almost done. So as you pipe, just make sure that it's uniform. Okay, so whichever way, you can sprinkle some sprinkles, right? Cherries, strawberries, chocolate, any design that you wish to do. So this has been a basic tutorial on how to ice a simple fresh cream cake. Join us on our next tutorial as we teach you more baking skills. Thank you.